Most people think of nutrition as something simple: calories in, calories out. But the truth is far more profound. Your body is not merely fueled by food, it is structured by it. Omega-3 fatty acids are not optional extras or trendy supplements. They are fundamental building blocks of your brain, your heart, and every cell membrane that holds your biology together. When you lack omega-3, you are not just missing a nutrient. You are gradually undermining the very architecture that allows your mind and body to function with clarity, stability, and resilience. Consider the brain for a moment. Nearly 60% of its dry weight is fat, and a significant portion of that fat is DHA, one of the most important omega-3 fatty acids. This means that your ability to think clearly, regulate emotions, and maintain focus is deeply tied to the quality of fats you consume. When omega-3 levels decline, the brain does not simply slow down, it becomes less organized, less adaptable, and more vulnerable to stress. Over time, this subtle deterioration can manifest as mental fatigue, emotional instability, and a sense that something is off, even if you cannot quite explain why. But the story does not end in the brain. Omega-3 also plays a critical role in controlling inflammation throughout the body. Inflammation, when balanced, is a protective response. When unregulated, it becomes destructive. Without sufficient omega-3, the body shifts toward a pro-inflammatory state, quietly increasing the risk of chronic pain, cardiovascular strain, and metabolic dysfunction. Modern diets, dominated by processed foods and omega-6 fats, have created an imbalance that our biology was never designed to handle. We are living in a nutritional environment that subtly pushes us away from equilibrium, while we remain largely unaware of the consequences. What makes omega-3 deficiency especially dangerous is its invisibility. It does not announce itself loudly at first. It whispers through fatigue, mood changes, subtle cognitive decline, and physical discomfort that we often normalize or ignore. Yet beneath those whispers lies a deeper truth: your body is asking for structural support that it is no longer receiving. And perhaps the most unsettling realization is this. If your mind and body are built from what you consume, then choosing what you eat is not just a dietary decision, but a philosophical one about the kind of life you are willing to sustain. If omega-3 is the architecture of the brain, then its deficiency is like slowly removing the beams that hold a building upright. At first, nothing dramatic happens. Life goes on. You function. You work. You think. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, the structure weakens. Concentration becomes harder. Memory feels less reliable. Emotions become sharper, less stable, more difficult to regulate. And what is most troubling is that many people interpret these changes as personal failure rather than biological imbalance. The brain is not an abstract machine detached from the body. It is a biological organ shaped by chemistry, nutrition, and environment. DHA, one of the primary omega-3 fatty acids, is deeply embedded in neural membranes. It influences how neurons communicate, how signals travel, and how efficiently the brain adapts to stress. When DHA levels decline, the brain loses some of its flexibility. Thoughts become rigid. Mood becomes fragile. The capacity to manage complexity, emotionally and intellectually, diminishes. This is why research consistently links low omega-3 levels with conditions such as depression, anxiety, attention difficulties, and cognitive decline. But the deeper insight is not merely clinical. It is existential. If your brain is deprived of the nutrients it needs to function optimally, your perception of reality itself can subtly shift. You may feel less motivated, less hopeful, less capable of meaningfully engaging with life. And because these changes happen gradually, you may come to believe that this diminished state is simply who you are. Yet this interpretation is profoundly misleading. Many psychological struggles are not purely matters of character or willpower. They are, at least in part, reflections of the biological conditions that support consciousness. When the brain is properly nourished, clarity emerges more naturally. Emotional balance becomes more attainable. The mind regains its capacity to explore, create, and endure. What this suggests is both humbling and empowering. You are not merely a passive victim of your thoughts. You are also a caretaker of the biological system that produces them. And if a simple nutritional deficiency can quietly erode your mental stability, then a deliberate act of restoration can begin to rebuild it. Because the quality of your mind is not accidental, it is constructed, one choice at a time. There is a strange paradox in modern life: we are surrounded by comfort, yet our bodies are increasingly inflamed. Pain in the joints, stiffness in the morning, persistent fatigue, unexplained aches. These have become so common that many people accept them as inevitable consequences of aging or stress. But beneath these symptoms lies a quieter, more fundamental imbalance, one that often traces back to a deficiency of omega-3 fatty acids. Inflammation, in itself, is not the enemy. It is a biological language, a way the body signals that something needs attention. In a healthy system, inflammation rises when necessary and recedes when the threat has passed. Omega-3 plays a crucial role in this balance. It acts as a mediator, helping the body resolve inflammation rather than remain trapped in it. When omega-3 levels are insufficient, the body loses its ability to shut off the inflammatory response. The result is a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation that slowly erodes physical resilience. This has consequences far beyond physical discomfort. Chronic inflammation subtly reshapes how you experience the world. When the body is under constant internal stress, the mind follows. Irritability increases. Motivation declines. The future feels heavier, more difficult to approach with optimism. You may begin to feel as though life itself has become a struggle against an invisible force, without realizing that the struggle is partly biochemical. What makes this particularly significant is that modern diets often amplify the problem. Highly processed foods and excessive omega-6 fats push the body toward inflammation, while omega-3 intake remains dangerously low. Over time, this imbalance becomes normalized. Pain becomes routine. Exhaustion becomes familiar. And the extraordinary adaptability of the human body turns dysfunction into something that feels ordinary. But there is something profoundly hopeful in this realization. If chronic inflammation is not merely fate, but feedback, then it can also be corrected. The body is not punishing you, it is communicating with you. And when you restore the nutrients that help regulate its internal signals, the body begins to recalibrate itself, often with remarkable speed. Perhaps the deeper lesson is this: when you ignore the quiet signals of imbalance, they eventually become loud enough to disrupt your life. But when you listen early, you regain not just health, but agency over your own trajectory.